Hi, Sister Liz.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Are we ready to go?
Fine, thank you.
Good to have you.
Yes, and Dr. Picard, make sure to mention too that the meeting is recording, just in case people didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That it is being recorded.
Yes, good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to this Let's Talk Africa activity. My name is Louis Picard. I'm a professor at the University of Pittsburgh and the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs. My specializations are human security and African development. I'm also president of the ASA Foundation for Human Security, and I'm president of the organization which works on human security issues, particularly in Uganda. Our title of our presentation today is What You Don't Know Is Happening, Voices from Nigeria, focusing on the Nigerian situation. I want to mention a couple of things as we start. Each speaker, we will have 5 speakers, and each of them will have their own views. They are their views and not the views of the University of Pittsburgh or the African Studies Association, or African Studies Program. Secondly, we're going to function question and answer time through chat. So if you want to ask a question, put your name into the chat mechanism, and Drew will keep track of those. Drew is an African Studies colleague working on the African Studies program, and he'll bring you in by unmuting. So unless you're unmuted, you'll not be able to speak, and Drew will then unmute you in order for you to ask a question, and then we'll mute you back up to avoid the background noise. I also want to mention that this session will be recorded so that you know that, and will be available, and I believe the slides will be available as well. So this is very much of a, I would call it in the old-fashioned term, a town and gown presentation. Our presenters are all practitioners, and 1 or 2 are also academics. But I'd like to introduce in the order of their presentation, Julie Arnheim, who's a business person in Pittsburgh. Sister Zita Iwuoha, who is in the healthcare sector also in Ross Township in Pittsburgh. Father Columba, Nnorom, who is both a part-time academic and also a pastor in Virginia. And finally, Ghandi Chuks, who is an immigration lawyer and working and consulting and in practice in Pittsburgh. And I will wrap up at the end representing the University of Pittsburgh, not ASA Social Fund for Hidden Peoples, but if you're interested in more of what ASA Social Fund for Hidden Peoples do, just type it into Google and you'll find everything that you want to know about us. So with that, I'd like to start with Julie and ask you to begin our presentation.
Sure, Lou, thank you so much. Let's talk Africa. And I'm really humbled to be leading this off. This came about today because several weeks ago I got a phone call from my friend, Sister Zita, who said, "My people are dying. My people are dying. How can we do something?" Drew, can you advance a slide? Just quickly about me. And I laughed at this when I got it. My 23+me results say that I'm 100% Ashkenazi Jew. And this is why today is being done on the 82nd anniversary of Kristallnacht. If you can advance, Joe. It's important for me as a Jew to be speaking about genocide and marginalization of people. Drew, you want to play the video? Sister Zita shared this with me to share with everyone. We're just going to watch a little bit of it and I'll drop it into the chat later for everyone. Oops, sound. Okay, so if sound's not working, then bear with the video for a second. It was dark on Kristallnacht, but we all need to play a part. Again, this is really saying everything that we're talking about today until we do something about it. And that's what we're doing. We're talking and we're doing today, and we're hopefully inspiring you as the audience to do something as well. Next slide, Drew. When Zita first showed me the picture on the left of the women in what seemed to be a cattle car, it reminded me of the Holocaust. The next picture of the women behind a cage reminded me again of the Holocaust. It reminded me of the issues that we're dealing with Homeland Security here, putting people behind cages. And Kristallnacht was all about the burning and destruction. And I've seen so many pictures of burning and destruction. And I grew up with Rabbi Walter Jacob as my senior rabbi and my neighbor. And a beautiful piece of remembering Kristallnacht as an 8-year-old. So I'll drop that into the chat later as well. Next slide, Drew. The reason that Kristallnacht is so important in Jewish history and world history is because the period before Kristallnacht, Jews in Europe were increasingly marginalized as people. So the reason Jews and allies hold events even 82 years later is because we know the importance of never forgetting, of never remaining silent or being indifferent. Because never again doesn't just mean never again to Jews, it means never again to anyone. And this is the message we carry forward every November 9th and 10th. On the 75th anniversary of Kristallnacht, Chancellor Merkel's words were, "Many people's failure to speak out had contributed to the breakdown of civilization." She said that racism and anti-Semitism cannot be given another chance in Germany. And I'd like to challenge us all to think it can never be given another chance anywhere in the world. We are global citizens more now than ever. Next slide. Right now, what's happening in Nigeria is that the military are pulling the Igbo predominantly, but in other areas too. And then they're marching them to their deaths and setting their homes on fire or looting their homes, just like happened 82 years ago to the Jews in Germany. Next slide. This was a brand new thing to me. Nigerian Jews? I had heard of Ethiopian Jews, but I had never heard of Nigerian Jews. And Zita enlightened me that there is a large Jewish community in Nigeria. And then thanks to Pinterest, I found this awesome page of Hebrew words versus Igbo words that have the same meaning. And again, all of these links for the official trailer of a documentary that was done, I'll in this into chat later, and you'll have access to the slides. So the Jews in Nigeria are still hoping that they can make Aliyah, which is the movement of any Jew to Israel. And sister, it's your turn.
Thank you so much, and welcome everyone to this wonderful opportunity that we have here in the United States to let the world know what is going on in this part of the world, Nigeria, that seem to be hidden a little bit. My name is Zita Iwuoha. I am a nurse and a midwife. I am the founder and CEO of Zita's Healthy Beginnings. And the photo you're looking at is the photo of women, the war that women carried out in Nigeria, 1929. Nigerian women are one of the most self-empowered group of women in the world. And one of the explanation of that was in 1929, when our colonial masters, the British, posed their warrant chiefs, who were then accused of restricting the role of women in the government. And our women stood up, came out in thousands, and these were Igbo women and other tribes joined them to fight this war, to say no to injustice at that time. And they won the war. And that was how powerful Nigerian women, Igbo women, have always been. Next slide, please. Here you see the maternal instinct. Again, it goes back to women. Women in Nigeria have always been strong. They have always been family builders. They have always provided and organized their families and run them in such a way that the significance of a family still rings true of the world today on the values and beliefs of a tribe and a nation. This photo you're looking at reminded me of when I was 2 months old. My mother traveled 30 miles each way to a hospital when I had bronchitis. Women at that time had the privilege, the freedom to take their babies, wrap them around their back, travel to market, go to fetch water, go to their farms uninterrupted, without threats. Today, that story is different. Next slide, please. As Julie mentioned earlier, the women you're looking at, please go back a little bit. You missed the slide. This slide you're looking at, Julie pointed out, she explained a little bit about it, but I just wanted you to know that these women you are looking at did not go for war. They did not demonstrate. These were poor, innocent women who were going about their daily business. These women, most of them were in the marketplace doing business to support families. Most of them were going to church, going to hospital, doing all kinds of daily routine women do in Nigeria, and particularly in Imo State. And unfortunately, they were caught. due to no reason of their, no fault of theirs, they were captured. Many of them were raped, they were maimed, and some of them were killed and thrown into the bush. And as we speak, these women were still trying to find out where their bodies are. The ones that you're looking at here, we still do not know where they are. And that is the question we keep asking Nigerian government, Imo State government, where are these innocent women? Next slide, please. So, because of all the unrest problems in Nigeria, women's power have been taken away, have been marginalized in so many different ways. And this has impacted not only economical, but their health. Women are supposed to be taken care of when they are pregnant, when they are not pregnant, because as we know, they carry life. And because of the situation in Nigeria, a lot of places do not have access to healthcare, especially prenatal healthcare. And because of that, I felt that women here in the United States and other countries where I've worked as a missionary have gotten access to basic healthcare, which prepares a woman to raise family, to start building her family in a healthy way. But that is not happening in Nigeria. In fact, as research had it, 1 in 13 women in Nigeria will die during childbirth. And the healthcare system in Nigeria is nothing to write home about. According to research, Nigeria healthcare system ranks the 187 out of 191 the United Nations member states. What are the
Zita,
causes?
Let me just intervene here quickly. I want to warn people that there will be in this presentation some images which are difficult to see. I just let you know in advance. And Sister Zita, please carry on.
Okay, thank you. So we want to find out when I was digging into what are the reasons for women, as I have mentioned, is the general poor governance of Nigeria. And that always has women and children. They rip off, they really, the struggle, the problem, everything that happens in a nation reflects on the women and children. The reasons I found was delay in seeking care. There is no affordability of care, and the quality of care is nothing to write home about. So Zita's Healthy Beginning was founded 5 years ago to answer to the problems that we're facing in Nigeria. The prenatal, the maternal and mortality rate and infant mortality rate is very, very high in Nigeria. And that is why I found this organization to seek help and support for women prenatally and to make sure that they receive adequate prenatal care when it's needed, which leads to having healthy babies, which helps a nation to function as they should. Next slide, please. So Zita's Healthy Beginning, ZHB, is also involved in the current pandemic. As we were struggling to get support to support women and children, we were all overwhelmed like every other person in the whole world with the pandemic. So we shifted our view, we shifted our focus, and we involved some of the women you're looking at were the women who we're helping, who have engaged, well, they have this skill, the sewing skill. We engage them, we hire them to sew masks. We get some of our members to go and teach, medical team, to go and teach the villagers on how to do their hand hygiene, how to wear the mask, and how to maintain distancing. And that has also been part of our work. Next slide, please. And here, as we speak, there's a lot of slaughtering going on in Nigeria, especially right now in the eastern part of Nigeria in Igbo land. The photos you're looking at are 2 pregnant women who were slaughtered. They were thinking that we thought that a few weeks ago, it was the war against NSAS. But what is going on in the past few days in Nigeria, especially in Igbo land, is the mass slaughter massacre of everybody they can lay hands on, youths, men, women, children. And it pains me to see that a pregnant woman was being massacred. They went into her room while they were sleeping at night and got all of them massacred. And that breaks my heart. That should not continue. And I'm crying and begging everybody and anybody who can help us to come to our aid at this critical time, to let the world know that injustice cannot continue. Stay in the last slide. Thank you, and I'm gonna hand it over to Father Columba Nnorom to continue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Father, will you carry on? You'll have to unmute.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Father Columba Nnorom. I'm a former political science professor and a pastor of a church. And I have been involved in Nigerian issues for decades. The key here is that most people don't hear about Nigeria because that's the way the West, the United States, especially Britain and United States want it to be. Because Nigeria is number one, a Black apartheid state, that is, one ethnic nationality, Muslim nationality, has been running the country, 5% of the population, since independence. And that's the way the British wanted it, because they didn't want to leave. They needed somebody to manage the place for them. And they selected the Fulani Muslims of Nigeria. And whenever you see these killings and these massacres, that is why they exist. Let me see the first slide, please. Okay. Well, the arrow points to Obibo in Igbo land, has about 50 oil wells. The youth there were participating in the NSAS protests, just as they were doing at Lekki in Lagos. And the Nigerian military pounced on them. Amnesty International says that dozens of people were killed at Obibo. And these killings in Obibo would never have been heard of, but for the fact that the NSAS protests and killings took place in Lagos, Nigeria. Because nobody reports the massacres of the Igbo or the Biafrans. It is covered up totally. Nobody reports on it. And this genocide has been taking place for decades. Let me see the next slide, please. Okay. Here you have the soldier. In fact, this is a summary of what is happening to the Igbo and the Biafrans in Nigeria. That soldier, definitely a Fulani soldier. And the young man, the young boy there is Igbo. It is conquest, oppression, and suppression. And it has been happening across Igbo land or Biafra land for decades, and nobody took notice. The world is taking notice now because of the NSAS protest. Let me have the next slide, please. Okay. Well, here you have a list of the massacres. The Igbo Biafran massacre is the longest genocide in modern history. From 1945 to the present. In 1945, the British were still running the country, but when these people were killed, they did nothing. And they incited the Fulanis and their friends to kill the Igbo because the Igbo were the ones who organized and helped to drive them out of Nigeria. They didn't want to leave because they knew there was oil. So all these massacres and killings, these are series. And nobody, by the way, has ever been punished or even arrested for killing an Igbo or Biafra in Nigeria up till now. Nobody has. And that's a fact. The next slide, please. Well, these are little boys who were suffering from what is called kwashiorkor, which came around from malnutrition and starvation. During the Biafra War, Biafra was blockaded by land, sea, and air, and people were dying of hunger. About over 3 million people died during that Biafra War, and up till now, nobody has been punished. No war crimes, no Hague, or nobody has been punished for the killings, for the war crimes and crimes against humanity. Next slide, please. Well, this is Nnamdi Kanu is an Igbo Jew. He was in Israel recently, and he is based in London, has offices in Germany, and also here in the United States. He is a leader of indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, and very charismatic. He can mobilize millions just by touching his fingers. Right now, he is leading a non-violent organization, IPOB, but we don't know how that non-violence will last after all these series of massacres and repressions. Next picture, please. Well, here, these are oils. This is an oil spill in Ogoni land. One of the tragedies of the Nigerian state is that it is unaccountable. It operates in immunity. Okay? A lot of Americans really don't know much about Nigeria, but Exxon knows, ExxonMobil, and so does Chevron, and so do other American multinationals and Shell company in Britain. They know about it. They are the ones. Oil is why Nigeria exists. Without oil, Nigeria would have ended because, as one of the founders of Nigeria, one of their leaders said, Awolowo, he said, Nigeria is a mere geographical expression. That is, there is nothing that unites the various nationalities in Nigeria, okay? And Nigeria would have broken apart into Biafra and other groups if the British and the Americans had not intervened. In fact, the Muslims in the north didn't want to live with the Christians. They didn't want to. The British and the Americans forced them to go and get the oil. Because Nigeria's oil, Nigeria has one of the, in fact, the largest gas reserves in Africa, and one of the largest oil reserves in Africa also. From 2010 to 2015, Nigerians, they profited, or their oil profits amounted to about $1.5 trillion. But despite all this oil, Nigeria is sort of cursed, what they call resource curse. That is what is responsible for what is happening. That is when countries, despite an abundance of minerals, are impoverished. They are impoverished because the state uses violence to take the minerals, and they are impoverished. And that is why Nigeria is the way it is. And one thing with Nigeria is not leadership. It is political structure. It is an abnormal, is structured politically like Nigeria. It doesn't exist. Where you have almost 50-50 Christian integrative attributes, nothing uniting the people. Nigeria, the way it is by violence and by force. And unfortunately for the Igbo and the Biafrans, have oil, and the Fulani have the guns, and they have the power, and all these oil companies have ganged up. Nigeria stays the way it is because they are, Biafra were to come into existence, they wouldn't have, the opportunities that they have in Nigeria, because since the Fulani don't own the oil, we own the oils of oil, the companies steal. So that's why you have a lot of corruption in Nigeria. Corruption, you have corruption, which leads to suppression, which leads to poverty of the world. Even though it is the richest country, mineral-wise, in Africa, Nigeria is the most corrupt country in Africa. Nigeria is a country that is what they call an anomaly. So anyway, as long as one Nigeria exists, there will be violence, there will be massacres, there will be genocide. The Fulanis will never hand over power willingly on their own, because they are the ones controlling the oil that doesn't belong to them, that belongs to the Christian, the Judeo-Christian. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. And Ghandi, please.
Ghandi, you have to unmute yourself.
Ghandi, please unmute
All
yourself.
right, you should hear me now.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Please go ahead.
It's Onyinye Ghandi here. I'm an attorney and an activist, and I live here in Pittsburgh. I'm going to use the next 10 minutes to go anti-robbery squad, SARS, whose extrajudicial killings led to the last protests in Nigeria, as well as a brief picture of how the Nigerian government is steeped in the extrajudicial murder of its citizens, and how this has gone on for a very long time and has gone on with impunity. Now, between 1985 and 1992, that was under the regime of Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, Nigeria was still then a military dictatorship. The International Monetary Fund wanted to assist Nigeria to solve its worsening economic problem. So it recommended austerity measures under a program called Structural Adjustment Program, SAP. Now, SAP, in essence, entailed massive disinvestment in the sort of social infrastructure that the country needed to progress and to create a better life for its people. So funding was taken away from education, health, and some of the other basic things that people needed for a better life. The outcome of that SAP intervention, as advised by the IMF, was worsening unemployment and poverty. And with that, saw crime skyrocketing. Crime rates went through the roof. So the military dictatorship, trying to find its way out of that problem, created a special unit of the Nigerian police, which it called the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. Now, legally, this squad has a wide range of powers. For example, they could mount roadblocks anywhere in the country and stop anyone. They didn't have to identify themselves if they were operating anywhere. They could go without uniforms and identification badges. And they were given wide discretion to determine what auspicious circumstances were for the purposes of combating crime. Now, I should also point out that to understand how such powers were dangerous and how they could be perverted, I should give you a little introduction into the structure of Nigerian society. For those of you who have looked into it or who have read a few books on Nigeria, one major factor that will stick out is the fact that Nigeria is essentially a chronist, rent-seeking environment. The Nigerian government and the Nigerian society functions essentially on the basis of cronyism, nepotism, and rent-seeking. Policies are drawn for the benefit of a set of Nigerian oligarchs, essentially elements who make up the ruling class. And while the Hausa Fulani hegemony predominates this class, it is also important to point out that they have allies all over the country. So they are well represented in the southeast, the Biafran region that earlier speakers have pointed out. They are also well represented in the southwest among the Yoruba people. They are well represented in the southern flanks of the country, places you call the Niger Delta, where you have a collection of minority groups. Now, in conjunction, this group has been sucking the collective patrimony of the Nigerian state to the exclusion of about 98% of the population since Nigeria's creation. So the implication of such rent-seeking and such failed economic policies is that the Nigerian police, an average officer in the Nigerian police earns about 50,000 naira a month, and that was after recent salary increase, and 50,000 naira is a little over $100. But a Nigerian senator takes home the equivalent of $80,000 US monthly. A member of the Nigerian House of Representatives takes home the equivalent of about 23 million naira, and that's about $52,000 US monthly. Now, if you are employed, or rather, if you are in the executive arm of the Nigerian government, say you work for the presidency, you're a minister, you are not required to be accountable. So we actually don't know how much those ones take. All we know is that when you want to award contracts, or when funds are allocated to your department, you do with it as you will. At the state level, the governors, Nigerian governors, have what it's called the security vote. Is a lump sum, usually running into millions of dollars, which they do not have to declare, which is allocated to them ostensibly to secure their states, but which typically goes into their pockets. So these are the various features of the chronist and rent arrangements within that society. And when you have such skew in the distribution of resources, the massive poverty that has led to some of these breakdown in social structures is a natural consequence. So because the police are very poorly paid, including men of the SAS, who were now given wide discretionary powers, it was only a question of time for them to pervert these powers and begin to abuse citizens. So from helping to prevent armed robbery and other violent crimes, the Special Anti-Robbery Squad became itself the most oppressive, corrupt, and violent criminal syndicate within the Nigerian state. It would arrest citizens, detain them without explanation, threaten their lawyers. I did practice law in Nigeria for a few years before I ran off to the United States. So I was once threatened by them. I was actually almost killed by them. Part of the reasons why I left that environment. They would threaten you and your lawyer. They could torture you. And if you died in the process, they accounted to no one. Very recently, as the economic situation worsened and as nobody checked their impunity, they became a little more brazen. Now they could stop citizens on the streets. If you looked a little bit well-dressed, you were instantly accused of internet fraud, and they would confiscate your phone or your computers. They would torture you to extract the login details to those devices. If you refuse to give them, they'll shoot you on the spot. As a matter of fact, the immediate cause of the NSAS protests was the execution in broad daylight of a young man in Port Harcourt, whom this same criminal syndicate, parading as a government security agency, arrested. And in front of citizens who were undergoing their regular day-to-day activities. They just put a gun to him and they shot him. And people just felt that was too inhumane to be passed on. And the beginnings of the massive NSAS protests that we saw started from that point. So that is essentially the structure of the Nigerian society, and the sort of powers that the SARS squad wielded. I don't know if you can move to the next slide. I have I think 2 photographs there showing typically what they do to citizens. Yeah, that should be slide 25 as I have it here. Now on that slide, you see officers, one of them dressed in mufti, basically pulling a citizen. Usually they have their trucks or their vans parked nearby. They throw the person in there and they start their torture right from that point. I once had a client who was tortured. His arms were tied and they shut off blood supply and he became almost paralyzed. Actually, they did that for over 8 hours. And by the time we were able to get him out of their hold, his arms were almost paralyzed. They were a very young man who had nobody to defend him. So that is typical of how SARS does its thing. But it also has to be mentioned that beyond SARS, the Nigerian military, the Nigerian army, the Navy, the military police, and other units of the Nigerian military, they are now used to serially abusing Nigerian citizens, and they are used to slaughtering, mass murdering Nigerian citizens with impunity. And the case of what goes on in the southeast, the Biafran territory, has been pointed out. But I should add here that while there's been so much brutality in Biafra, simply because of the Muhammadu Buhari's hostility, Muhammadu Buhari's government's hostility to that breakaway region or to any attempts to split the country. In other parts of the country, you've seen similar acts of impunity and mass murder of citizens. In Zaria, in 2015, a few months after Mr. Buhari was elected, the Shiite sect, a Muslim sect operating in that part of Nigeria, were on a protest, and they ran into the head of the Nigerian military, one Buratai. He currently heads the Nigerian army, Yusuf Tokor Buratai. And they held the convoy and refused to let him pass because they had grievances, as citizens are entitled to have. And rather than the head of the army yield to them, seek an alternate route, or find some other ways to de-escalate the situation, he felt slighted, and he ordered troops who were with him to mow down the citizens who held him. And at the last count, unofficial figures held that over 1,000 men, women, and children were slaughtered. Official figures put that number at 348. Amnesty International eventually discovered mass graves in parts of the north where the Nigerian military had buried these people, even though the military continues to deny these killings. With specific regards to IPOB, in 2018, when the house of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, was raided by the Nigerian military, over 150 young men and women were slaughtered. As a matter of fact, I have a picture on slide 27. That's my very last slide. If you could quickly go there, slide 27. Now that image was discovered some weeks after that incident happened. The military were capturing young Biafran men or young Igbo men, tying their hands behind their backs, taking them into bushes and executing them. And for some of them, in order to mop up evidence, after the mass slaughter, they will pick up the bodies, put them in military trucks, and take them back with them to the barracks. So the point being made is that a mass murder of citizens with impunity, please, it has to be added, because that government has so far not been held accountable. Neither has it taken steps to hold specific actors, specific individuals, either within the military or the police, accountable for these killings. Rather, it denies, it destroys evidence, it defends the killings, and it seeks to terrorize citizens. Now, because of this serial abuse and the, like I said, worsening economic environment in the country, Nigeria, by the way, has about 60% of its population is now between the ages of 15 and 24. So that's a lot of young people. They're a vibrant young population with no employment, no access to education or other opportunities. So they're beginning to ask questions. For a very long time, they've been asleep, so to speak. The government has used ethnic and tribal divisions to keep them apart. But when the SARS and military killings continued unabated, they began to ask questions. And the result was what you saw in the end-SARS protests, where young people in Nigeria from across all the ethnicities, for the first time, young Nigerians will beat the ethnic division that had disempowered their parents and their grandparents. And they pulled a joint force, and for 13 days, they protested peacefully and drew the attention of the world to police brutality and extrajudicial killings in Nigeria. Now, seeing that the protest was beginning to metamorphose, because from a demand to end police violence, the protesters now started to demand good governance, reduction in the cost of governance, that the Nigerian senator shouldn't be taking $80,000 a month when the average policeman was taking over $100, just over $100 a month, that the Nigerian presidency was corrupt and was, selling a facade to the rest of the world. They were beginning to ask fundamental questions and then demand wholesale changes across the entire spectrum of Nigerian society. So the oligarchy that I pointed out earlier on felt seriously threatened, and it began to take devious steps to, first of all, compromise that movement, seek to infiltrate and turn it into a violent demonstration in order to give it the excuse to crack down on the protesters. Now, it hired a lot of thugs, and I should point out here that thuggery is institutionalized in Nigeria. The Nigerian government weaponizes poverty to keep young men disempowered, so that during political or during elections, it hires the same very poor young men, arms them, and uses them against the political opposition. So many of those young men who are very poor, especially in the southwestern part of the country, where the ruling All Progressives Congress holds sway, were brought in, and they were attacking peaceful protesters, armed by the Nigerian government. At the capital in Abuja, we saw the same thing. The government employing thugs, cultists, street urchins to attack peaceful citizens protesting, not damaging any properties. Then eventually on the 20th of last month of October, while protesters were gathered at Lekki tollgate, Lekki is a suburb of Lagos. While they gathered at the tollgate there to express their disenchantment with the government, the Lagos State governor, because there's a panel of inquiry right now sitting and hearing evidence, and so far evidence coming out from that panel has shown the Lagos State governor the Lagos State government under the governorship of a certain Babajide Sanwo-Olu invited the Nigerian military. But I should also point out that the Nigerian military is commanded by the Nigerian president. So the military does not act simply because a governor has invited them. For the military to take any action, the Nigerian presidency has to be aware of it and authorize it. It's just the way it works because the president is the commander-in-chief. They took out cameras that were at the toll gate in order for evidence not to be captured. They shut the light out, and this was happening around 7 p.m. West African time. Now they shut the lights out and it became pitch dark. And men of the Nigerian military moved into that zone and opened fire on the protesters. As at the last count, Amnesty International put the figures at 58 young people, young protesters, unarmed, wrapped in the Nigerian flag, many of them singing the Nigerian national anthem, slaughtered. I should also point out that the Nigerian government has, as usual, denied this and has sought to, create a lot of confusion in the public space, hiring social media influencers and a whole lot of other people, to generate fake videos, confuse the public, and put out false information. But the facts we have, as per evidence and investigation from Amnesty International and other international organizations, show that several people were killed, not just in Lagos, but across the country. In summary, therefore, the Nigerian government seems to have a particular preference and taste for the blood of its people. The Muhammadu Buhari regime in particular has shown itself to be very intolerant, very, very sensitive to citizens' protests. It doesn't discuss with citizens. It doesn't negotiate with citizens. It does not believe in yielding space to citizens' demands. It believes that citizens must be cowed, intimidated, and if those options fail, then you've got to murder them. And we've seen that across. Now, the last slide I have, still 27, please. I wanted to point out a few notable instances of these mass murders. And these ones I picked were because the numbers, were staggering. And these were official numbers. Usually the unofficial numbers in Nigeria are usually twice the official numbers. So the 348 Shiites slaughtered. The unofficial numbers said about over 1,000 of them were killed. And like I said, mass graves were discovered. And those mass graves are still there in the north as of today. IPOB, all right, over 150 killed in 2008. Now from 2018, from 2018 to this day, scores of them, have also been killed. Usually the Nigerian army, whenever it sees them holding meetings, or the Nigerian police, they just go in there and they start shooting them, because nobody will ask questions. Sometimes they dissolve the corpses in acid. They just dissolve. This is Nazi style barbarity, that nobody asks questions about. Then during the same NSAS protest, somewhere in Osun State, in the southwestern flank of the country, a place called Ikire, young people there rose up to challenge the use of the military, the forceful use of the military to suppress protests. And the military was brought in, allegedly, or rather accusing the young people of allegedly disarming one of the military officers. They went on a killing spree, pulling young men out from their homes and executing them on the spot. That incident was not reported internationally. And the local Nigerian media, which is largely controlled by oligarchs in Nigeria, basically tried not to give vent to that criminality. And then as of today, in Obib, a suburb of Port Harcourt, actually a town within Rivers State, in Port Harcourt, southern Nigeria, former part of East Central State in Nigeria, the governor, in conjunction with the Nigerian military, sent in troops there, alleging that some men of the Nigerian army were killed during shootouts with unknown persons whom they have accused of being IPOB members. And as of today, we are yet to track accurately what the death toll is. But what we know is that they are systematically executing young people. It's almost like a genocide. All right, they're taking young people and they're shooting them on the spot. So I will round off with this, please, because I've been signaled. I'll round off with this. The importance of this forum and what we're trying to get out is this. The Nigerian government is very comfortable, and it is very comfortable because of its relationship with Britain. Britain has significant vested interest in Nigeria's status quo. As an earlier speaker pointed out, Nigeria's oil wealth largely benefits the British establishment because the sharing formula is skewed. The Nigerian people are getting nothing from Nigeria's resources. And the British establishment, in alliance with local elites in Nigeria, continue to control this wealth. So that is why highly paid diplomats around the world will pay lip service, or at least deaf ears, to any complaints about atrocities perpetrated by the Nigerian government. And I hope that after this session, we will be able to draw sufficient attention to begin to push back on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much to everyone. I want to just take a few minutes to put the discussion that we've had this afternoon into an international context, and then we'll open it up for discussion, question, and answer. Could you move to the first slide, please? So, what we're talking about is a worldwide process that. A worldwide process that we call Hidden Peoples at the ASA Social Fund for Hidden Peoples. And there are many ways in which people can be hidden and marginalized, and keep in frameworks that we're dealing with. So there are indigenous people who were the first people who lived in a place, are a good example. There are people who are threatened, who are ethnicity, religious, or language situations. There are people who are endangered at some point, at risk. Holocaust, of course, is the the visible example of this. People, peace, and in different places, children, women, physical or mental, are all placed in this marginal. Next slide. Oh, thank you. So 3 examples of different kinds of people, not ones that you, Europe, Asia, and in Africa, who have been indeed shunned, have been marginalized, and in many cases have been who have been threatened. The so-called gypsibles, the San in the Dalit in India, the end of process. Next, please. So dehumanization is the psychological process that occurs. The abandonment of children, whether they're, and you'll find all of these, I'm sure, in just about any situation, including Nigeria, are people who have no longer a human identity to those that, the source is often in the dehumanization process in war, but also attacks, burns. And in a situation where you have in the eastern Nigeria, but also in other parts of Nigeria, which is important, it's that brings civilians into the process, and they're often brutalized. The identifying with them as being human is the result of first shunning, separating them apart in a different mental, slavery, other forms of exploitation, and eventually civilians in the context is the subordination, the exclusion from the social system, the violence in a situation directed at one group of people. That term, we've had different portraits of the situation from different people. It is perhaps the, next slide, please. Let me just say a quick word, which is another case study where essentially a civil war situation existed and has existed for the better part of 30 years. Uganda suffers from internal and external refugees. There's lots of anger and resentment. Much of this is north versus south, so it's not just a regional, it's almost a split. It's a split based on language primarily, with Bantu speakers in the south, Luo speakers in the north, and except periodically the Central Sudanic speakers isolated from the rest of the country. Marginalization in war and peace often then leads to the question of what can happen. One thing is mobilization to try to end the violence. That's the first phrase. Second phrase is, of course, to take a close look at victims with a goal of rehumanizing them, rehumanization, bringing them back into a society which basically incorporates them rather than shuns them or excludes them. And this is why our organization, ASA Social Fund for Hidden Peoples, and why I think those focused on conflicts need to keep a thought out for, well, what happens afterwards. And in Biafra, unfortunately, the issue was not resolved. It festered, and it appears that along with a lot of other things in Nigeria, it's raising the issue of marginalization in a divided society once again. Next slide, please. This is the formula for disaster. These are the two visions or the two images. Poverty, uneducated men with weapons and war, and with a brutal and difficult leadership. It can be one-sided, it can be two-sided, it can be multi-sided. Next, please. Addressing this issue, this is Katwe, Uganda, 2018, the issue of social and economic development, it seems to me, is the second step. The first step, of course, is demobilization, remobilization, and humanization. Next step, please. In the LRA war, as it was called, 200,000 people were killed, 1 million have been displaced. This is the so-called Lord's Resistance Army, and any similarity to the images that you see in Nigeria are quite correct. The center of this conflict was in Gulu, Uganda, and the time we're talking about is 1986 to the present. Next, please. So we'll turn over to some last words, very brief last words from Julie and Ghandi. Before we do those, let me ask you to take note of the organization that I am president of. It's all one word on Google, ASA, Social Fund for Hidden People. And we'd be happy to have you join us, see what we're doing, and look at the issue of hiddenness and the movement towards surviving, shunning, and marginalization. Thank you very much. Thank you to the whole panel. Julie and Ghandi, please just take about a minute each to wrap up so that we can open it up for discussion. Just a couple of words of reference with regard to discussion. Please note your name on chat, and then introduce yourself with your name and with your background if you wish, and then ask a quick question, quick comment, and then mute your button once again. All right, so Julie.
Thank you so much, Lou. And again, thank you for helping to bring my vision to Pitt and for hosting this amazing talk over the last hour. So I am going to be dropping a lot of stuff now into the chat. Lots of different ways that you are going to be able to learn more by reading. And also I have all of the key members of the Senate and House Foreign Affairs Committee contact information that I'll drop in. I want to teach everybody a really cool thing about Zoom. If you go open your chat and go down at the bottom, and you'll see 3 dots, like 3 ellipses, a little button there. If you click those 3 dots, up pops Save Chat. So this is a way that you'll be able to save all of the information that I'm dropping in right now. The first is just going to be a way to join Zita's Healthy Beginnings email list, and a story on Zita and the work that she does, and a story on Zita and myself bringing today forward. Social media is a really big thing. If you learned something today, use social media. Share about what you learned today, and use any of these. Oops. I just said that to someone privately. Use any of these hashtags. There's the information to join Zita's email list. And then let me grab my list of, Ghandi, if you have something you want to jump in and share, I'll post these links under the War to Want.
All right,
Well,
real quick, evil thrives when good people keep silent. And of course, we know that there's evil and there are evil people around the world, but with specific reference to state actors, governments are usually able to get away with criminality when the rest of the world looks away. Because if the government is very powerful, at least in the interim, it possesses the monopoly of violence, and it can hold the citizens in check. And for particularly bloodthirsty ones, they don't care how many people they'll have to kill just to be able to hold on to power or prevent themselves from changing. Now, the only way we can check them, or you can help us check them, is to make them understand that the struggles of the Nigerian people have gone international, that the killings can no longer continue. And the SARS unit, which is now prescribed but now replaced by another unit called SWAT, essentially the same thing, was funded in part, trained, and equipped by the British government. And that is why we are asking you to help us draw the attention of everyone who has influence on the British authorities, especially British citizens, to understand the atrocities their government and other elements within the British establishment are committing in Nigeria. All right, every attempt to push or nudge the Nigerian government towards change by Nigerian citizens is resisted by the Nigerian government because it is very confident of the support of the British authorities. whether it is for business reasons or for other reasons, what's important is that lives are being lost to that. If the Nigerian authorities are very comfortable, nothing is going to change. They're going to continue to kill our citizens. So please use social media. I just created a change.org petition here, which I don't, Julie, did you get it? I sent it to you via email.
Okay, let me go grab it.
Yes.
In the meantime, I think what we're going to do is we're going to open this up now to question and answer. And so, Drew, you can close down these slides now so people can see each other, and let me open it up. Again, Drew, if you can take from the top on the chat list, I believe Macrina may have had the first question.
Yeah, I did have a question, but I think it got answered somewhere along the way as Ghandi kept talking. I was just curious about the Nigerian government, because it looks to me like there's so much atrocities, killings of people and all that. So, but in this case, it looks like it's just the opposite. So as you were talking, I thought I got some of it, but if you just want to quickly, summarize that, that would be great.
Yes, please. The question, what are they doing? What they're doing nothing, because they are the perpetrators, as you rightly pointed out. They are the ones who need checking. The conundrum the government has run itself into is that the politicians who are in power need to pat the police on the back in order to continue to get the support and protection of the police, or at least not to have them revolt and join the ordinary population, even if they are not paying them well. So they are not doing anything. Nobody has been made to account for all of these killings that you've heard of and that you've seen. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody. There were talks about people losing their jobs, but these weren't verified. Everybody who was in the previous Special Anti-Robbery Squad unit was moved into the new unit of SARS. Nobody was held accountable. So we're part of the efforts we're making is to ensure that everyone who has killed someone pays for it one way or another. Thank you.
So Ambiola has a question.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Ghandi and Dr. Picard and Julie, everyone that presented. This was very enlightening. I'm originally from Nigeria, and there's so many things that we tend to even learn after we get out of the country. So we do know that Nigeria is a very challenging place. So that's why I left my country 38 years ago. And it's never been better. It's got worse and worse till this morning. My question is, what could the world do for Nigeria? Because Ghandi, you did ask the question that we need help, and Sister Zita too said we need help. What help can the world do? I personally speaking, being Nigerian American, I think we Nigerians are the only people that can help themselves. A typical example is the protest that happened a few weeks ago. If the whole country mobilized, the youth we're talking of millions and millions of people, if they did what they've done a few weeks ago, if that continues, and when the next election comes, they vote all these people out, that's the only way, because it's supposed to be a democracy, but they're treating Nigeria as if it's a military rule. They still continue using the armies and all these military people to kill as if we're in a military rule. Because I was in Nigeria when we were in a military rule, and I know how they treated people. And that's exactly even worse they're treating people now. So I really don't understand what the world can do for Nigeria. I think Nigeria should do for themselves. The masses, the millions of Nigerians should come out. Mothers and fathers and grandparents and youth should come out and fight against this and change the people that are leading. Because when election comes, they give them a bag of rice, which is maybe just about 50 cents or $1, and maybe some Bonvita, and they vote. They vote for these idiots again and again and again. And nothing has really happened. And until Nigerians wake up and fight for themselves, the world doesn't really give a damn, because everybody's dealing with their own problem. We Nigerians have to fight for that country. If you're expecting America to fight for you, expecting Europe to fight for you, we will be there another 60 years. And things will continue getting worse for us. So that's my comment. So, but Ghandi, and what do you expect the world to do for us? I really, I don't understand.
All right, thank you, Dr. Abi. You see, the targeted sanctions, that's part of what we've always recommended. And I agree with you that Nigerians must take the lead. And that's why we're very gladdened when Nigerians poured out on the streets and protested for 13 days very peacefully before the government attacked the protests. And we are getting feelers that they're trying to regroup again and move out again to make fundamental demands. So they will take the lead. But we need the international community, the United States government especially, to target specific Nigerian politicians, both those in power and those out of power, all right? And sanction them. I'll give you an example. The last elections held in Edo State, Nigeria, the ruling All Progressives Congress is known to usually intimidate voters, bringing the military to carry ballot boxes and other forms of electoral violence in order to win elections. But because the head of that party, or the immediate past head of that party, and other top-ranking members of the party and those in government too, were given travel sanctions by the United States government. All right, their travel visas were withdrawn and were banned from entering the United States for a given period of time. Many of them stayed away. And for the first time, Nigerians saw that their votes counted. So it is one thing for Nigerians to be ready to vote out bad leadership, but it's also another thing to make the votes of Nigerians count. So we would recommend that very influential countries like the United States and the European Union look at specific Nigerian politicians and apply targeted sanctions in order to influence their behavior.
Let's take one more question, and then Father, we'll let you come in. How's that? Another question?
Oh, yes, I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, my question is for Ghandi. There are two questions. In the course of the NSAS protest, I realized that there is a deep division within Nigeria, particularly the North-South divide. For instance, a lot of Northern youths, they saw the whole NSAS protest as a Southern problem. So that explained why the protest actually did not really permeate the northern part of the country. So in a case whereby everybody's talking about 2023 now, okay, let's vote, let's bring out our president and stuff like that, how do we galvanize support across all geopolitical zones, including the North? So that's my number one question. Number two, as we speak right now, innocent young Nigerians, our brothers and sisters, are still being picked up from their houses and being thrown into detention camps. I mean, this morning I woke up very early. I was on Twitter, we were calling Buhari to just release this guy. There's this particular guy. He was arrested, I think, 2 days ago at his Lagos residence, and he was thrown into jail because he protested. Right now, as I'm in Nigeria, I actually don't care. I don't care. We would all go to that police station and let them throw everybody in jail. So how do we stop this government from clamping down on people again? They're trying to introduce social media bill. They're freezing accounts. They're doing a lot of things because they feel like they're trying to intimidate young people. But those guys are also scared at the same time. So how do we pull out again? I don't mind if we go back to and face these tyrants. The thing is this, they cannot jail everybody and they cannot kill everybody. So if we all go, fix a day, let all of us come out and face these tyrants. They have no choice but to bow to our demands.
Father Nnorom, and then back to Ghandi. You'll have to unmute, Father. Father, you'll have to unmute.
Okay. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we're hearing you now. Yes.
Okay. As someone who was heavily involved in the anti-apartheid movement and in the Southern Sudanese movement, I see some parallels to what happened in those two countries and what is happening in Nigeria. The locals may protest, get killed, but let me tell you, until two key countries, the United States especially, and Britain, intervene, the Fulanis will hold power forever, because it was Britain and the United States that gave them power. They gave them power to go and get the oil, okay? And that's the key. So until the United States applies pressure, like the US did, we protested in DC against the apartheid regime in South Africa. As the United States Congress passed the Sudan Peace Act, until they pass sanctions on both individuals and the government, nothing's gonna change, okay? There is a limit to what people at home can do. But if the US government especially imposes sanctions on Nigeria, is a very vulnerable country economically. It relies, 95% of its foreign earnings comes from oil. 65% of the budget also comes from oil. So if the US government directs Exxon influences Exxon, Chevron, all those oil companies there to really pressure the Nigerian government. I'm telling you, these killings will stop. But right now, they are in cahoots with the Fulani. That's all I want to say about it.
All right. If you can hear me real quick, to Pelumi's question on how you can foster unity across the country for protesting youth, you have to understand that just like poverty is weaponized in the other parts of the country, in the North is particularly dire. Most of the people you hear speaking for the so-called North aren't really the ordinary peoples of the North. These are the few elitist Northerners who have cornered the resources of the peoples of the North to themselves. They are the ones who have the sort of education required to be able to express themselves on social and other media. And sometimes whenever they speak in defense of themselves and the system of privilege that they currently enjoy. What we have to do is to go through them, all right? To connect to the ordinary peoples of the North, many of whom are not complicit in the atrocities that the oligarchy or the Northern oligarchs are committing. As a matter of fact, the Shiites who were slaughtered by Buhari's military, remember Buhari is a Northerner, he's actually considered the champion of the North, but the Shiites who were slaughtered, these are poor Northern people. All of them are Northerners. They're from Kaduna State, Zaria in Kaduna State. All right, when he wanted to slaughter it, and that's why we always make that point that beyond the noisemakers.
Ghandi, let me ask you to pause there so we can get another comment or question in from our group.
Okay.
We have about 5 minutes left, so if anybody has a comment or a question. So let me ask the group as a whole, any of you feel free to chip in. I think one of the issues that is here, and I'm going to put it on the table before we leave, is this...
And also, Dr. Picard, I think Vincent was trying to talk, but he was muted, just to let you know.
Oh, okay. Well, let's let Vincent in. I'll just make a sentence. There remains on the table the issue of whether this is a repressive regime against the whole country or whether or not it targets a particular part of the country. And Vincent, if you'll go ahead, but please unmute.
Okay, I just did a mute. Thank you so much for the opportunity. You know, we talk about Nigeria and what's going on right now. It is clear, it is pertinent to point out that a lot of people in the world in Nigeria believe that Mr. Buhari is dead. And the man now calling the shots is Ibrahim Gambari, who was Nigeria's representative to the United Nations for many years. That gives you a clue that the international community is actually calling the shots in Nigeria because the man they put there is the man they know. So what is happening in Nigeria is not local. As Nnorom said, it's an international connivance to put Africa down, to impoverish African people in order to exploit our resources. And this historically can be traced back to the Berlin Conference of 1885, you know, convened by Otto von Bismarck, the German Chancellor then, who brought Europe together to scramble to partition Africa, of which Nigeria fell to Britain. So that's the historical connection. So the impoverishment and the murderous inclination that happened with the Holocaust didn't start with the Holocaust. That meeting in Berlin, in my estimation, is worse than Holocaust, and that's what has kept Africa down to date. Thank you.
I believe that we are out of time, and I'd like to thank everyone for their participation. We're experimenting with new technology, but I think this is going quite well. I thank all of our panelists. I thank African Studies, the other sponsors. And again, all of this material will be available, I believe, on the African Studies website. Please check all of the groups out. And again, thank you for attending this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And before you log out,
Thank you.
go into the chat, hit the 3 dots, and save everything that I dropped into the Zoom.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ghandi. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, and I'll send Drew all that information to you in one Word document so that you can disseminate it or post it.
That'd be great.
Hey, Julie, how did you say these could be saved? The charts could be saved again?
When you go to the chat, you'll see right where it says like to everyone, file, and then 3 dots. Click the 3 dots. And it says save chat, and then just click save chat, and it saves the entire thing.
Sorry, I lost you for a minute. Could you repeat that again? Sorry.
Sure. Down at the bottom of the chat, open the window at the bottom where it says to everyone, and then it says file, and then there's a little square with 3 dots in the middle. Click on those 3 dots, and it will say save chat.
Okay.
Anna Marie, I will send it out. I've never tried it on a phone. I've only tried it on a desktop.
Okay, that's the point. I'm doing it on a phone, and when I hit to everyone, it just brings out the list of everyone here.
Right, but you're not hitting the everyone. You're going further across, but I've never seen it on a phone.
Okay,
Zita,
yeah, it's not. I don't see it on the phone. It's probably
Zita, you are muted.
I said on the right hand side, on your left would be the everyone, on the right would be the file. If you're looking at your
Are you doing it on the phone, Zita? Is it on a phone or?
No, I'm saying where it's located on your phone. So
okay.
Yeah, you see everyone. It's on the left. On your right is where the file is.
But file is for uploading a file?
No. On that file, you see the 3 dots you were talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not on my phone. I can't find it on my phone.
Yes, if you hit the file, it will say save chat.
Oh.
Yes, then you hit the chat.